Hello and good morning. Welcome into the Cam Rogers Show on this Monday morning, March 12th, 2018. I'm Cam Rogers. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. The madness is here. This morning, I listened to the March Madness intro theme song, and I want to jump through a brick wall. I am going through the entire bracket, ladies and gentlemen, getting you set for the best week in sports. The tournament is here. So here's the lineup for the program. I've got you covered for the next hour. March Madness bracket breakdown. I'll be joined by college basketball analyst Michael O'Donnell at the 10-minute mark. He'll join me via Skype to break down all of the March Madness storylines. He was there present for the conference championship between Cincinnati and Houston. I'll ask him a little bit about those teams as well. And then after that interview, I'll go matchup by matchup, breaking down some of the key games that you guys need to know as you fill out your brackets. And then finally, wrapping up the program with the latest NFL headlines, Allen Robinson, Kirk Cousins, DeMarco Murray, the list goes on in terms of a lot to talk about across the National Football League as the negotiating period opens today at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, and a lot of players out there left without extensions, i.e. Drew Brees, and I'll talk about him later in the show. But let's get into it. We'll go region by region here, talking about the bracket. We'll start in the South. And I'm going to go from 1 seed down to 16 seed, kind of give you guys a team-by-team breakdown here. But here's a look at the first part of the bracket. There you have the Virginia Cavaliers, the #1 overall seed in the entire bracket, the best top seed too, taking on University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Tony Bennett's squad, 10-7 in 7 appearances. Last appearance, lost to Florida in the round of 32. The Virginia Cavaliers, the ACC champions, going 31-2, 17-1 in conference. There you see the quadrant 1 record as well, 12-1. This version of the Cavaliers is like many of Bennett's previous teams. The success starts with that great defense. They led the nation in scoring defense, 53.1 points per game by a large margin over any other teams in the nation. Opponents scored more than 60 points just 8 times. Per usual with Virginia, the offense isn't spectacular, though all 3 guards shoot pretty darn well. A lot of people out there are saying that the Cavaliers could be finally destined for the Final Four, if not the national championship game. So a team to certainly watch out for as you fill out your brackets and as you enjoy all the games that go down. Other teams in this region, you've got Cincinnati, the Bearcats, the American champions. They took down Houston. Of course, you see them there. They battle Georgia State, 30-4 in the regular season, 16-2 in conference. Last appearance was last year. Lost to UCLA in the round of 32. Mick Cronin, 5-9 in 9 appearances. They're not always pretty when playing on the hardwood, but they're certainly effective. They play hard-nosed defense while their scoring balance makes them defending a challenge. So a team that certainly could make some noise going into maybe the Elite Eight, the second weekend, however you want to put it. They don't shoot free throws particularly well, which is a low-key important thing in the tournament. 68.8 percentage, and the perimeter shooting isn't always the best in the land. So a lot of people like to make Cincinnati happen. I out there like to say, please stop trying to make Cincinnati happen, because I don't think they can ever be trusted when filling out a bracket. I'm not going to trust them this year, but a lot of people have some faith in the Bearcats. There are the Tennessee Volunteers as the #3 seed. They got their bid as an SEC at-large. Their last appearance back in 2014. Lost to Michigan in the Sweet 16. Rick Barnes, 21-22 in 22 total appearances in the tournament. Tennessee strong on defense, holding opponents to about 66 points a game and 40.7% shooting from the field. Vols are pretty good on offense, too. They make threes. They shoot well enough from the floor and at the free throw line. Have a terrific amount of depth as well. So Tennessee, a team to watch out for as you go through. Arizona, they'll be playing Buffalo, the number 4 seed. And the Wildcats, Pac-12 champions, played in 2017 as well. They lost to Xavier in the Sweet 16, and all the controversies surrounding Sean Miller and all this stuff with the investigation. He got his team here, 19-10 and 10 total appearances in the tournament. A preseason Final Four favorite. I think it's safe to say no team has dealt with more off-court hoopla than this squad. And look, there's the FBI investigation, Miller's alleged discussion of paying DeAndre Ayton to attend Arizona. The list goes on. But the reality is, Arizona, are they a team that can make noise going into the tournament? I think they have the ability, but if they run into Kentucky, and by the way, a lot of people are picking Davidson to beat Kentucky in an upset. I'm not seeing that. I think Kentucky could certainly take care of business against Arizona. They're playing some of their best basketball right now, the Wildcats are, of Kentucky, the number 5 seed there. John Calipari, 51-17 in 18 appearances in the tournament. Last played in 2017, of course, when they lost to the eventual champions, North Carolina, in the Elite Eight. Kentucky, the SEC champions, 23-10, 10-8 in conference. They've been Jekyll and Hyde this season, which is something we're not very used to talking about Kentucky. But that is the reality with them, although they finished the season, like I said, very strong, winning the SEC championship. A lot of people like Davidson to bounce the Wildcats in that first round. I am not buying into that. I like Kentucky to certainly make a strong push in this South region as we kind of continue on here. You could talk about Miami as well. They are the 6th seed. A lot of people like them to get bounced early. 22-9, 11-7 in the ACC. They're an ACC at-large bid. Played in 2017 too, where they lost to Michigan State in the round of 64. They take on Loyola, and a team that could certainly be a Cinderella type of story going into the tournament and going through it and watching all the games go about. 4-game win streak to close the regular season helped the Hurricanes secure their 3rd consecutive tournament berth. What the team lacks in star power makes up with balanced scoring and depth. A bonus would be if Bruce Brown is healthy enough to play. 11.4 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game. He's been out since February with a stress fracture in his foot. So an injury to kind of monitor with the Hurricanes there. But I could see the 11 seed here, Loyola, Chicago, Missouri Valley champions, last appearance in 1985 when they lost to Georgetown in the Sweet 16. Could make some noise and bounce the Canes of Miami because they didn't look all that great in the ACC championship game. There you see Nevada at number 7 seed, Texas as the number 10. They will duke it out. And that essentially wraps up the South region. A quick little preview of the East region as well. We got Villanova, the number 1 team in this region. They'll take on the play-in game of LIU and Radford. We'll see who wins that one. And of course, the play-in games begin tomorrow. Virginia Tech and Alabama. Alabama stealing some headlines in the SEC tournament with Sexton getting it done. He's a fun player to watch. You got West Virginia and Murray State, a little 5-12 action, as well as Wichita and Marshall. Upset potential there. I'm seeing a lot about perhaps Marshall making some noise. It's a team that can score really effectively. Wichita State, not as strong on the defensive side than we have seen in years past. So if you want to find an upset in this East region here, watch out for Marshall taking on Wichita State. And Marshall, of course, a team that has the ability to bust some brackets. So that's why I'm saying keep an eye on them now. The Thundering Herd, the Conference USA champions. Last appearance in 1987 when they lost to TCU in the round of 64. They played big-time spoiler in the Conference USA tourney. This team has some legit bracket-busting ambition here. Dynamic offense that ranks in the top 10 in the nation in scoring, 85 points per game. Only Marshall has 2 players who average more than 20 points per game. So that's a little look at the East region there. And I'll go through the entire bracket. Stick with us right here on the Cam Rogers Show throughout the hour. I'm giving you some updates on some of the upsets that could go down, and Marshall and Wichita State certainly won at that. But as promised, we have on the Cam Rogers Show Mike O'Donnell joining the program here. He's, of course, a college basketball analyst on ESPN and CBS. Mike O'Donnell, appreciate the time, sir. You were just watching Cincinnati and Houston yesterday. What do you make of those two teams?
Well, thanks for having me on, Cam. I really appreciate it. Cincy is tough. I think we knew that going in. This has the potential to be Mick Cronin's best team since he's taken over at Cincinnati, because we love the way that they defend. Every single team in the country hates playing Cincinnati, right? Because it's going to be World War III every time, and it's going to be an absolute battle in the paint and on the perimeter. But the difference is they got three guys that are potential 20-point scoring threats every time they step on the floor. So you combine great defense and physicality with really, really great offense, and the Bearcats are tough. But Houston is one of my favorite teams that people don't know enough about. I think people forget that they're one of the top 10 field goal percentage defensive teams in the country, and they have a legit 30-point scoring threat in Rob Gray Jr., the best scorer in the country you don't know enough about. So I think when you combine great scoring, great defense, and they're a good rebounding team as well, this Houston team, if they make it to the second weekend, I won't be as shocked as a lot of people are.
Let's take a look at the #1 overall seeds here, Michael. We got Xavier, Kansas, Villanova, and Virginia. Out of those four, which team scares you the most, that can make the most noise heading into the Final Four and actually win the title?
Yeah, well, I think pretty all deserving #1 seeds. I think a lot of people had some questions about Xavier, if they actually really deserved it or not. But Virginia and Villanova are the scariest teams in the tournament, regardless of seed. Virginia only lost one game in the ACC, one game. That's insane. That's unheard of. And their defense is maybe the best defensive team in the last 10 years of us keeping defensive efficiency ratings. And then you have Villanova, who has arguably the best player in the country, and Jalen Brunson Jr. And it's funny, he may not even be the best player on the team, on this Villanova team. I mean, you got to go Mikal Bridges. He's a tremendous lethal scorer. And then, but the difference with those two teams is obviously you have the depth from a NCAA tournament standpoint. You got a coach who's won a national championship. You have players on this team who have won a national championship. That matters. I think people like to be cliche and say that they have great team chemistry and all that. That's fine. You can talk about that all you want. This team knows how to win, and they know how to win in the tournament. And to me, it's going to come down to Virginia and Villanova in the championship game. And that is going to be absolutely beautiful basketball to watch. And I think those two teams are, no question, the most dangerous teams in the tournament.
Well, let's talk about the Cavs a little bit. Virginia, Tony Bennett has yet to make a Final Four, and we know what Virginia does. They play strong defense. Their guards are pretty good, perhaps better than in past years. But they still haven't gotten there yet, Mike. And that was kind of the storyline with Villanova for all those years, right? And then they finally won the title. Could this be the time for Virginia to finally buck that trend and Tony Bennett takes his squad to the Final Four?
I think so. You got to remember, Cam, Virginia's name isn't being mentioned as one of the cheating schools. I mean, it takes time to build a program the right way. And I think Tony Bennett is doing just that. When you look at this Virginia team, they weren't ranked in the top 25. They were picked to middle to lower pack in the ACC preseason rankings. And you have two really, really good guards in Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome, but two players that nobody thought they would be as good as they are. You knew they were going to be good defensively. This team has all the tools. Might be the most complete team that we've seen in the last 10 years of college basketball. I'm not saying the best team, but I'm saying the most complete team. When you talk about combining great defense with highly efficient offense, they have great guard play. They're strong on the interior. You're not going to see them press, but they run a defense called the pack line defense, and it's essentially almost impossible to score over 65 points against Virginia. And the thing that I love about Virginia and this team is if they're off, if Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy are missing their perimeter shots because they are excellent three-point shooters, they are very comfortable winning games in the high 40s and low 50s.
Yeah.
Most teams aren't accustomed to playing that style of basketball. And to me, when your legs are tired, when your arms are tired, when your shot's not falling, when it's short, playing in a massive, massive dome to where your depth perception is off, I love teams like Virginia who can lock up. And if they won a game 48-45, the Virginia Cavalier fan base would be smiling, going absolutely bonkers, because that's exactly what they need to do and what they can do, given the fact that they're comfortable in the low 50s, high 40s playing games. Most teams aren't.
As you see, folks, you can take a look at the Virginia Cavaliers tournament profile there, and we'll flash some of the graphics of the official bracket here for March Madness, as well as I chat with Mike O'Donnell of ESPN and CBS Sports. Mike, did you have a chance to check out the Selection Sunday yesterday? I mean, the internet kind of broke where people were like, what is going on? First of all, the video and the audio weren't synced up. Then you had like the live studio audience. And I just want to get your thoughts on the whole new presentation. Of course, it was on TNT yesterday rather than CBS. So a lot of differences in yesterday's show.
Yeah, unfortunately, and this is not, I am not copping out, I promise, Cam, but we were doing a live show for the American Digital Network last night, literally in the middle of the selection show. But I recorded it because I'm completely insane and I'm a college basketball junkie, so I watched it after the fact. And there's no question, I think it's pretty easy to say much can be improved. The live audience didn't bother me. My favorite part of the selection show in the last couple of years has been, the uncertainty of who was going to get in. And I love Ernie Johnson. I think he's incredible. But I think Gumbel is the guy to release the entire bracket. I enjoyed it when they went by region to region. That was my favorite part of the selection show. I think most people agreed with that. I think an hour-long show is perfect. If they want to put a live audience, that doesn't really bother me. I was a little bit taken back by going in alphabetical order. I thought that was a little odd. I thought that took away from some of the anticipation of the selection show, but it goes back to CBS next year. TBS, with the new package and the new rights deal between CBS, Turner Sports, CBS, and the NCAA, this was the year for TBS to try something new. They certainly tried something new. I will be surprised if it's the exact same format next year when it goes back to CBS for the entirety of the show.
Do you think it's just because sports fans out there, Mike, just hate change? And we're traditionalists, it seems. And first of all, it's like humanistic gut instinct to not like change. But like for sports fans, we like the tradition and all this stuff. You hear about complaints about changes to other different formats in sports too. Maybe that's just kind of part of the reason why people really didn't like the new format. But I do agree with you in terms of the alphabetical revealance of these teams just really didn't make too much sense because you almost had to keep track and then remember which teams were in the field, right?
Right. You fight this all the time, right, Cam? I mean, you have to dive deep in the statistics and the analytics of your audience, and across the country, everybody's split. You have the diehards who want the same thing over and over again because that's comfortable for them. And then a lot of times you have the younger folks. I can't believe I just said younger folks, by the way. How about millennial generation? Guys like you, Cam. I'm an old guy, man. I'm closing in on 33. But you have the millennial generation that they embrace change. And a lot of times they're like, the thought process of like, look, we've done this a million times. This is boring. My attention span is maybe 10 seconds long. And I think that's why you brought in the live studio audience. You try to shake things up a little bit. I never fault anybody for trying to go for something that that can change an entire audience, that really tries to push the envelope, because we have to progress as media. The media landscape is constantly changing. The way we consume content is always revolving, always changing, and at a pace in which, quite honestly, I have a hard time keeping up, because I think the way that people like to consume content is changing for them. I don't think there's just this strict segment of population that's on their phones all the time. I don't think it's just the iPad. I don't think it's just the computer. I think it's just the TV. I think it's this, we're trying to grab an age demographic, knowing that that age demographic is still trying to figure out the best way they like to consume content. So media entities that try to change what style of format they're distributing content, I don't have a problem with, but they do need to adjust and rely on your audience when something's been so good for so long. That does make you raise an eyebrow and say, was this actually the best change? Okay, we took a shot, great. CBS and Turner Sports, they still have the NCAA tournament until 2024. It's not forever, but it's still a big chunk of time. And I think, when it goes back to CBS, you'll probably see more of the traditional formats. Maybe it's just distributed differently the way it's streamed. Again, maybe you combine the old format with a live studio audience, and that makes everybody happy. Great, that's fine. But we consume content in a way that's baffling to me, and nobody's really kind of figured out the formula. And that goes for ESPN, CBS, Stadium Sports, Fox Sports. Everybody's trying to figure it out, and everybody's swung and missed, and then there have been some home runs. So it's going to take time, and we'll see what happens.
No doubt. It certainly seems like we're in that middle part of this transition from the cable TV era over onto the mobile era. And, of course, Turner Sports and CBS trying to find that happy medium there. So certainly a solid effort at change. Let's go back to the hardwood here, Mike. And I want to talk about Xavier, the #1 seed here in the West region, Big East at-large team. Got bounced by Providence in the tournament. In 2017, they lost to Gonzaga in the Elite Eight, talking about previously with Providence, of course, the Big East tournament. What do we make of Xavier? Because I feel like they're going to be a popular early exit for many people who fill out their brackets.
Well, I think this could be the best team that Chris Mack has had since being at Xavier. I think they are a legitimate Sweet 16 team. I don't have them going to the Elite Eight. If you look at the gauntlet that they have to go through, I mean, I think they're going to get bounced by Gonzaga. And then if they do get passed by Gonzaga, they got to go through Michigan or North Carolina. And I think this Michigan team is a legitimate Final Four team. It's a Wolverine squad that has gotten better over the course of the season. And to me, it's not necessarily what you've done in the first 10 games of the season. It's how you're playing right now. And what they did in the Big Ten tournament was insane. I do not see Xavier getting past Michigan to get to the Final Four. I had Michigan going to the Final Four. I think this team is built for a deep late run in March. Xavier can score. Their starting five is great. They have a great six-man. And then after that, there's some questions. I don't know if Xavier has the depth to really advance beyond the Sweet 16 in this tournament.
So it wouldn't be March Madness and the bracket reveal without any controversy, Mike. And we have a few nuggets of controversy. You could talk about Syracuse, but I want to talk about Oklahoma here. They're in the field despite losing 8 of their last 10. And it seems as though the committee has essentially said, well, we're looking at the entire season. It's not how you finish, but looking at those wins even in the early part of the season when Oklahoma was stealing a lot of headlines with Trae Young, who's going to be an exciting player to watch in this tournament. Do you have any problem with the Sooners in the field?
Well, they should not have gotten over USC, in my opinion. I think USC's entire body of work was better than Oklahoma's. I do believe that the Big 12 is superior than the Pac-12. But this is a little bit of the Trae Young effect. And if you're looking at the entire body of work, sure, there is no question you can make an argument. But when you lose 8 out of your last 10 games, that is a major cause for concern. I think, though, here's going to be the interesting thing, Cam. I do not think that Oklahoma should have got in, but I am not angry about Oklahoma getting in. Because they're going to be facing non-Big 12 opponents in this tournament. They have Rhode Island, which is going to be an awesome game because that Rhode Island team is really good. I'll also be surprised if Coach Hurley is still there after this season. Wouldn't be surprised if he took the UConn job, who UConn recently fired Kevin Ollie. But nobody has faced, outside of the Big 12, very few teams have faced a player like Trae Young. Trae Young is a player that when he gets hot can take you to the Sweet 16. If Oklahoma wins the first 2 games and they go to the second weekend of the tournament, I won't be surprised because of the Trae Young effect for 2 reasons. One, he's going to turn on a lot of TV sets, and you're kidding yourself if you don't think that big blue brands, blue blood brands actually play effect into the NCAA tournament selection. Right. They absolutely do. That's the reason why I think that Middle Tennessee did not get into the tournament. That was a major bubble team that should have got in. But Oklahoma is certainly capable of advancing and proving a lot of the doubters wrong because of matchups. It's not always about the seed. It's not always about how good of a team you are right now. Everything comes down to the matchup. That's why we see teams like Butler and VCU make Final Four runs, is because how you match up with that particular team. And if that team has not faced a high-volume shooter and scorer like Trae Young, and Trae Young's hot, he can single-handedly take Oklahoma to the Sweet 16.
No doubt. Sometimes it's about how those dominoes fall in the tournament. So we'll see about Oklahoma. There you see they take on Rhode Island. You mentioned the Wolverines a little bit. I want to talk more about this squad here. Big Ten champions, John Beilein squad, entering the tournament on an 11-game win streak, 14th in BPI, playing in the West region. And you look at the matchups here. Of course, they have Montana to start things off. We'll play the winner of Houston and San Diego State. You've got North Carolina in that region too. Providence looks pretty good as well. But, man, Mike, I'm telling you, Michigan, they are balanced. They have a good defensive squad. We talk about Virginia and their defense, but the Wolverines have it too. How deep can they go, the Wolverines?
Well, they have a great offense too, and their front court is as good as any front court in the country. I think a lot of people, when you talk about great front courts, you would immediately think of Purdue. But this Michigan team dismantled the Boilermakers. This is a very, very good Michigan Wolverine team. Coach Beilein has been one of the top 5 best coaches in the country in the last 10 years, in my opinion. Another guy that we won't really hear much conversation of related to any FBI probe. You know, he never gets the McDonald's All-Americans, but he develops players, 4-year players, better than anybody else in the country. They have an incredible front court. They run an offense that's very difficult to guard. It's very much a combination between Princeton and dribble drive, and it's fun to watch. And defensively, they're great in the scatter report. I mean, if you look at their road, like you said, they have Montana to open up, and then they face the winner of Houston and San Diego State, 2 teams that they can easily take care of to advance to the Sweet 16, and then a potential matchup versus Providence or UNC. I think it's going to be North Carolina. I am not big on North Carolina. I think they have plenty of talent. I think they're very athletic. They are not deep, and they actually have a hard time scoring. And I think this Michigan team could easily beat North Carolina by double digits if they actually face each other in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. I really, really like this Michigan team. I think you're dead on. I've picked Michigan to go to Final Four. And I think most people need to take a good, hard look at the Wolverines this year because they are legit.
Talking with college basketball analyst Mike O'Donnell here on the Cam Rogers Show. Mike, you revealed one of your teams in the Final Four there. You got Michigan in. Open up that crystal ball for us. What's your entire Final Four looking like?
Yeah, I got Kansas, Villanova, Virginia, and Michigan. Kansas is playing typical Kansas basketball as of late. This is a really, really great team. The thing that's great about Kansas is they have a player in Devontae Graham who's done very well in the NCAA tournament. He's one of the best point guards in the country. He's up for the Naismith Player of the Year award. And they have a ridiculously strong front court between Adoku Azubuike and Silvio De Sousa. Those guys are monsters, and they shoot the 3-ball well, and then they crash the offensive glass. They're pretty good defensively. They're not great, but they don't turn the ball over. They have great scoring, and their ability to crash the offensive glass is incredible. And I think this Kansas team is really good. I could see them getting to the Final Four. We mentioned Villanova briefly between Jalen Brunson, Phil Booth. Those 2 players, Mikal Bridges, those 3 guys can get you to the Final Four. They've been there. They understand what it takes. This is a very deep Villanova team. This is a disciplined Villanova team. They did drop a couple games in the Big East, but I love Villanova in March. It's so hard to pick against those guys, depending on the matchup. If you take a look, they'll take care of Loyola Illinois, Brooklyn, and Radford, and then they'll face the winner of Virginia Tech and Alabama. I think that's an easy road, very easy road to get to the Sweet 16, and then they could face potentially West Virginia or Wichita State in the Elite Eight, and or match up with Purdue. But Villanova has the easiest schedule to get to the Final Four. Kansas would have to go through Michigan State or Duke to get to the Final Four. That's no easy task. Virginia has the most difficult road to get to the Final Four. The committee absolutely crushed the #1 overall seed in the tournament. Virginia would have to go through Arizona. They'd have to go through Cincinnati, and they'd have to go through Tennessee and potentially Kentucky. This is a monster in the South. And you start out in Boise. Well, Boise might have the most tuned-in audience, go figure, in the entire NCAA tournament, because you have huge brand names, and Arizona is so underseeded, it's crazy. I think Arizona should have been a 2 or 3 seed, and Kentucky very well could have been a 4 seed. So Virginia has a gauntlet to get through to get to the Final Four. They can do it, but by far Virginia has the most difficult road to get to the Final Four.
That South region is no doubt rich in talent. Going to be a fun one to watch as we go through March Madness. Mike, joining the Cam Rogers Show right now. Before we let you go, I want you to give our audience your #1 tip as they fill out their brackets, because we can take in so much information at once and our brains explode. But if there's one thing to really stick to, what is it?
Well, if you're diving into stats and analytics and research, if you're just doing simple research to look up, you've got to look up at matchups. And if you have a high-volume scoring team matched up with a great defensive team, I take defense 9.9 times out of 10 in the NCAA tournaments. And I also take senior leadership. If you want to look at how old teams are, and you look at their starting 5, do they have a group of seniors that's been on the squad for a while? I think senior leadership and defense play a large part into a deep Final Four run. It's all about matchups and senior leadership, to where you could say, we understand how to win big games. Who's playing well right now is another huge issue. When you look at defense, when you look at senior leadership and who's playing well right now, that's why I think you and I both agree Michigan's so good, because they're playing great. They have senior leadership and they defend. And those 3 characteristics usually take you far in March. I don't always fall in love with the 12/5 seed matchup, but there is definitely a sleeper team that could go to the Elite Eight this year, and that's St. Bonaventure. Take some time, read about the Bonnies. That's a team to where if they make it to the Elite Eight, everybody's going to be going crazy because they don't understand what's going on. That is a really, really good basketball team that can score, that has veteran leadership, and they were crushing the Atlantic 10 this year. A very, very, very dangerous team. I love the Bonnies, St. Bonaventure, this year as a big sleeper pick for the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, on the program. College basketball analyst Mike O'Donnell joining us here live. Mike, do appreciate the time, sir. You're a busy man. Wish you all the best.
I appreciate it, Cam. Thank you. Love your stuff, man.
All right. Take care, Mike. Appreciate it a lot. Rolling along here on the Cam Rogers Show. Let's go back into the bracket here. So I took a little bit of some time on that South region. I talked about how rich in talent it is. You got Virginia, you got Kentucky, you got all these fantastic schools here, and I really don't know who's going to come out of that portion. You got Arizona and Tennessee as well. I'm not buying fully into the Virginia Cavaliers hype here. A lot of people like Virginia to go all the way and win the national championship. Mike talked a lot about the Cavs and their fantastic defense and how they can seriously make some noise in this tournament, but we have seen before where we're hyping up that defense and Virginia gets outshot in a game when some team has really good guard play and they're letting it rain and Virginia gets bounced pretty darn early. So something to kind of monitor there when you're filling out your brackets talking about the Virginia Cavs. You got Tennessee as well, a well-balanced team. I think Miami is in trouble of getting bounced early. Nevada and Texas is an interesting one. Talking about Texas here, the Big 12 at-large candidate in this one, their last appearance in 2016, lost to Northern Iowa in the round of 64, you may recall. Shaka Smart, 7-6 in 6 appearances. Really struggled to gain momentum, Texas did, in the Big 12 with the loss of sophomore guard Andrew Jones, who was diagnosed in January with leukemia. Really tough story there. But you got junior guard Kerwin Roach, who's playing pretty darn well, and freshman forward Mohamed Bamba playing solidly as well. Then for Nevada as the number 7 seed, which is something I didn't expect, the Wolfpack, Mountain West at-large candidate here. In 2017, they lost to Iowa State in the round of 64. Had to sweat a little on Selection Sunday after running into San Diego State in the MWC tournament, the Mountain West, and their overall body of work got them into the field, but their chances to make a deep run actually took a major hit when guard Lindsey Drew went down with a torn Achilles tendon last month. So if you want to look at an injury that is very crucial, you can look at the Nevada Wolfpack and the loss of Drew there. They're pretty thin on the bench, not a lot of depth, so maybe Texas could take care of business there in that South region. I want to hear from you on the Cam Rogers Show. What's your Final Four prediction? Hit me in the comments section. We'll show your comments throughout the show. We do appreciate your participation because on the Cam Rogers Show, you know how it goes. We don't suggest your participation. We demand it. So hit me up in the comments section. Derek going with UNC all the way. I see Austin chiming in about Michigan. I'm a big fan of Michigan myself. Douglas chiming in with Purdue. Physical team on the glass. Can they shoot with their guards? Can they defend on the perimeter? That's something to watch with the Boilermakers. So keep those comments coming in on the show, guys. We do appreciate it. I want to go into the West region. I've not had a chance to talk too much about the West. You got Xavier as the number 1 seed there. Big East at-large team, lost to Gonzaga in the Elite 8 in 2017. You have Chris Mack, 10-7 in 7 appearances. And I think Xavier is a team that will probably get bounced early. Not a big fan of them. And we shall see how deep they can actually go. They could run into quite a buzzsaw here. So you look at Xavier and their entire region. So you got Michigan there. They won't see Michigan until the Elite 8, or excuse me, until the Final Four if that were to go down. Perhaps they could run into a tough matchup with Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga, not a lot of people are talking about them, but I think that's a team to monitor there. Ohio State, I think, will probably get bounced early. Houston, San Diego State. San Diego State's a really good defensive team. Maybe they could take care of business against Xavier. But here's the big takeaway with the Musketeers. Do not overinvest in this team to make a deep run. If you're going to go overweight in this region, I think you got to go with the Michigan Wolverines, the Big Ten champions, riding a lot of momentum, an 11-game win streak, 14th in BPI, playing in that West region. It's a scary, scary team, guys. I'm telling you. So talking about Xavier, I mean, the worst case scenario is them to actually run into Michigan in that Elite 8. So I could see that happening, but that's the deal with the West region. I do want to talk about the Midwest. Haven't had a chance to really talk about them. You got Kansas as the top seed. Coach Bill Self, 43-18 in 19 appearances. There you see they play UPenn, the 16 seed. Kansas versus the 16 seed there will probably take on the winner of Seton Hall at NC State. I don't see the Jayhawks getting bounced in that first round. New Mexico State, buy in. I'm telling you, this is a team that is scary. It's a team that a lot of people are jumping on board with, and sometimes I caution that. But the WAC champions, 2017, they lost to Baylor in the round of 64. You got Chris Jans in his first appearance, and he was named the WAC Coach of the Year for a reason. And you got senior forward Jermeo Jones was named the WAC Player of the Year as well. So a team to kind of monitor, to make some noise in the Midwest region. Meanwhile, for Clemson, an ACC at-large candidate here. Last appearance was in 2011, lost to West Virginia in the round of 64. Picked to finish 13th in the ACC, though, at the beginning of the season. So certainly batted off a lot of bad kind of press and PR heading into this season. They were 16-3 before Dante Gradam was sidelined for the season. Clemson 7-6. After that injury, they're going to need some good guard play against New Mexico State and probably going to have to score a good amount of points as well for Clemson to make any sort of noise. Auburn is an interesting one. Charles Barkley, a big fan of the Tigers taking on Charleston. I think Auburn will probably take care of business in that first game, but running into New Mexico State in that round of 32, big time caution there. Continuing along in the Midwest region, Michigan State, a lot of people see them as a quasi number 1 seed in this tournament. They're at a number 3 seed. They take on Bucknell. I don't think they'll have any problems there. TCU could very well get bounced by Arizona State. I think Arizona State beats Syracuse. Syracuse does not deserve to be in this field. So I think Arizona State could upset TCU, and then Arizona State would take on Michigan State, and I think I know, and everybody knows how that would go down. Oklahoma, Rhode Island will be a sneaky fun one at that. Duke taking on Iona. Nobody's talking about Duke here, which is kind of a problem. ACC at large. Mike Krzyzewski, 34th appearance in the tournament, 91-28 in his 33 appearances to this point. They have the star power. You got the preseason number 1 guy, or the preseason number 1 ranking that the Duke Blue Devils had, and, you know, they didn't carry that all the way through, but as a 2 seed, I like them a lot. Marvin Bagley certainly lived up to the hype as a freshman and was ACC Player of the Year. You got Grayson Allen providing shooting and a veteran presence, too. Quadrant 1 record is somewhat left to be desired, and they did lose to UNC in the ACC tournament. But despite that, I think the Duke Blue Devils are a team to certainly monitor there. So March Madness coming around. I'm not picking the games today. I'll reveal my bracket at some point this week. So stay tuned for that. But that is the latest with March Madness. Of course, you have plenty of time to fill out your bracket. The real games start on Thursday, but the play-ins, of course, will kickstart tomorrow night. I'm just getting word in my ear about some breaking news across the National Football League. I do want to transition into the NFL anyway to talk about some of the big-time headlines. And let's go to Miami, where the Dolphins are expected to cut Ndamukong Suh, star defensive tackle there. Suh is expected to be released as soon as today. And you see that big-time cap hit there. $26.1 million in 2018. The Dolphins can save $17 million if Suh is cut after June 1st, which obviously would not happen because if he's being released today, it would not be a post-June 1st cut. But you could see some $17 million in savings there. But Ndamukong Suh, a star frontline player, and it seems like the Dolphins are going through some changes here where obviously, they are dealing away Jarvis Landry. He's going to the Cleveland Browns. There's uncertainty at the quarterback position with Ryan Tannehill. But you look at the salary cap situation here, and that's what it all comes down to for many of these teams because, first of all, the negotiating period can or will start at 12 o'clock Eastern time. So you have that happening, and decisions have to be made. So Ndamukong Suh reportedly is a designated cut for post-June 1st, so that's when the savings would kick in there. And like I said, the salary cap situation here for Miami is as such. You have a lot of teams with a good amount of cap space, like the 49ers, like the Browns. That's why they're going to be active in free agency. Meanwhile, for the Miami Dolphins, they're kind of at that midway point. You know, they're not in a great salary cap situation, but they're not in a bad one either. And dealing away Jarvis Landry certainly helps them in terms of their cap hit because they would have to pay Jarvis like $16 million if they were to go through with that franchise tag there. Obviously not the case because he's going away, and that won't be official, by the way, until March 14th when a trade can become official. But obviously the Miami Dolphins are going through some turnover here, and Ndamukong Suh expected to be a post-June 1st cut. And there you see the $17 million in savings there. So big-time story. We have plenty of other headlines, including Richard Sherman set to join the San Francisco 49ers. That didn't take very long, right? Got cut by the Seahawks, and he's going to join San Francisco in the Bay Area. Agreed to a 3-year deal worth $39 million, including a $5 million signing bonus, $2 million base salary, $2 million in a 46-man roster bonus, $1 million in playtime incentive, and a $3 million Pro Bowl incentive for 2018. Mention the 49ers in terms of cap space. They got a lot of it. So the 49ers are a team with a lot of ability here and to kind of be active throughout the free agency period. And Richard Sherman going to be a San Francisco 49er. Let's move along here to the Giants. They have cut Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. He is going to be a free agent, 31 years old. The Giants saved $6.5 million by cutting him. He was entering his final year of his 5-year, $35 million contract. The Giants, good amount of savings there. DRC, not one of the younger free agent cornerbacks out there. And he has been in a corner his entire campaign, his entire career. And reportedly, the Giants wanted Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie to move to safety, and he didn't like that. Or the Giants brought up the option for him to take a pay cut. He didn't like that either. So that's why he is a free agent. Graded out as the 58th best corner, according to Pro Football Focus. So middle-of-the-pack campaign for him. He's not the number one corner, or was not for the Giants. That'd be Janoris Jenkins. But Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie set to be a free agent there. That's a headline this morning. Let's go to the running back position. The Raiders could potentially sign Doug Martin. So he has been released by the Buccaneers. We know that. John Gruden recently met with Doug Martin and was impressed, according to reports. Martin in the midst of essentially saving his career after rushing for fewer than 425 yards each of the past 2 seasons. But we've seen flashes with him before, particularly in his rookie season and in 2015 when he won All-Pro honors. Since then, Doug Martin has struggled to really break tackles, show elusiveness, and really any sort of burst in the run game. But apparently John Gruden willing to give this guy a chance. The Raiders, they already have Marshawn Lynch, Jalen Richard, DeAndre Washington on that roster at the running back position. So it would be interesting to see where Doug Martin would really fit on that depth chart if indeed he is signed, but obviously something to kind of monitor here. Another headline, Muhammad Wilkerson. What's the latest with him? So he visited the Packers, Saints, and Chiefs. He's got a visit with the Washington Redskins coming up. The Jets obviously cut Wilkerson after what was somewhat of a dismal campaign where he got benched in Week 15 as a result of missing a team meeting. Plenty of teams are giving this guy a chance, though, a second chance for sure, in terms of improving on his maturity and all of that. I think Green Bay would be an interesting destination. Mike Pettin is the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator out there. And, of course, Pettin worked with Wilkerson in 2011 and 2012. And my gut instinct is Wilkerson's probably going to have to do some convincing as he goes throughout this tour here of all of these teams and all of these visits because not a great 2017 in terms of PR for him, with some maturity problems and all that. So he's going to have to talk to all these teams, front offices, and say, look, I'm a different person. I can improve upon my mistakes that I made. So that's the latest with Muhammad Wilkerson. He's still touring about. Let's go to the latest with Joe Thomas, the star tackle for the Cleveland Browns. Is he playing? Well, with the acquisition of Tyrod Taylor, Joe Thomas reiterated how he's a big fan of the quarterback, so the speculation is perhaps he won't retire because Joe Thomas had been mulling retirement for months now. He went through some auditions with Fox Sports and ESPN to be a commentator of some sort. So he's kind of exploring his options here, and Joe Thomas has been on the record in support of Tyrod Taylor as a quarterback. Now, it's kind of funny to think that Tyrod kind of moves the needle for Joe Thomas to actually convince him to play in the National Football League for another year, but it's certainly a possibility as a guy who's a big fan of Tyrod at quarterback. So the big question with Joe Thomas is, can he get back fully healthy after that season-ending injury in 2017? And his thinking is, well, can I play at a high level still? and I think that's something that he's going to test out. He did survive 10,363 consecutive snaps until that injury last year. So if there's anybody that can be an Iron Man on the offensive line, it is Joe Thomas. So he can certainly rebound at that. The 49ers, are they in on Allen Robinson? It's going to be an all-out bidding war, according to reports, between the 49ers and the Chicago Bears. Jason La Canfora of CBS Sports did an in-depth write-up on some free agency storylines, and his biggest one was about the 49ers continuing to be big-time spenders in free agency, gunning for Allen Robinson. And this makes sense here, talking about the salary cap situation. The 49ers are still in a fine position. They are one of the top 10 teams in terms of salary cap space. They could make a run at Allen Robinson. And a lot of people like to tie them to Jarvis Landry, and he wasn't even a good fit for San Francisco because they have Trent Taylor at the slot position. But Allen Robinson would certainly be a nice pickup. A couple of years removed from that 80 reception, 1,400-yard season where he had 14 touchdowns as well. A lot of teams are going to be in the Allen Robinson sweepstakes. And if the 49ers need a wide receiver, I think Allen Robinson is certainly the best fit to kind of fill out that void that they have. They have Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin, who they just signed to an extension. So it almost indicates to me that maybe they don't want to go out and grab a wide receiver in free agency, but Allen Robinson is certainly a guy to watch out for. The 49ers are going to be very active with him. Let's get to the next headline here. The Broncos and the 49ers agreed to trade Aqib Talib, but Talib said no thanks, according to reports. So he didn't want to go to the Bay Area and play for San Francisco, and he actually threatened the Broncos / the 49ers that he would not even report to the 49ers if this trade were to go down. So after that threat, it obviously didn't happen, and the Los Angeles Rams were the beneficiaries of that. So it's interesting because this had quite a domino effect, considering the 49ers went on to sign Richard Sherman, and let's say they missed out on Sherman, the 49ers probably would have brought in Tremaine Johnson, who's still a free agent and probably not heading to the 49ers at this juncture. Regardless, it is quite clear that Aqib Talib's love of Bill Belichick and Wade Phillips could not be denied. And obviously, the love for Wade Phillips won out in the end. Phillips, of course, the defensive coordinator out there in L.A. We also had a trade that went down over the weekend. If you missed it, you were out on a picnic with the family, or maybe you're out to the movies or anything like that, playing golf perhaps. Danny Shelton has been dealt to the New England Patriots. So the Browns traded Shelton along with a 2018 fifth-round pick to New England in exchange for a 2019 third-round pick. And Shelton played in 46 regular season games, 45 starts, totaling 71 tackles and 1.5 sacks. He was the 2015 12th overall pick. Really hasn't lived up to the hype that he had post-college. Scheduled to earn a base salary of $2.03 million in 2018. The Patriots can also pick up his fifth-year option in 2019, which would be obviously yet to be determined for that. Shelton joins 2015 first-round pick Malcolm Brown and 7-year veteran Lawrence Guy on that interior defensive line. And look, the Patriots could certainly use some beef up front, considering they ranked 30th in rushing yards allowed per attempt last season. And oh, by the way, Alan Branch and Ricky Jean-Francois ain't coming back to that front line for New England too. So Danny Shelton headed to the Browns. Just one of the many deals that the Browns have made of late. Some news yesterday at the secondary for the Chargers. Casey Hayward has been extended. 3-year deal worth $36 million. Casey Hayward gets $20 million fully guaranteed. The #1 corner, according to Pro Football Focus a year ago, and the Chargers may have, and I'm telling you, they may have the best collection of corners in the AFC. Yes, even better than Jacksonville. You got Hayward, Trevor Williams, Jason Verrett coming back from injury, and Desmond King, who had a great year at the slot. The Chargers led the entire National Football League in terms of pass breakups and interceptions total. The Jaguars did not finish inside that top 2. So Casey Hayward, a big part of that secondary for the Chargers, obviously good for LA to extend him there. DeMarco Murray's a free man, so he's visiting teams, and he will visit with the Detroit Lions today, according to Adam Schefter. Detroit returns Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick at the running back position, but they ranked last in rushing in 2017. So Lions general manager Bob Quinn has made no secret of the team's desire to upgrade at that position, and rightfully so. The Lions have struggled to run the football, it seems, for the past 7-8 years. Could DeMarco Murray be the fit for the Detroit Lions? Let me know in the comments section which team is the best fit for DeMarco Murray. The Titans saved $6.5 million by cutting DeMarco. No dead money involved either, so the Titans kind of went out in their own way because they can usher in Derrick Henry to be their premier rusher in 2018. Meanwhile, for DeMarco, he's a free man, and we'll see where he goes. But obviously, things start off with the Detroit Lions. We are getting closer to the negotiating period in free agency, and no deal has been reported between Drew Brees and the Saints leadership. So the speculation is, could Drew Brees head elsewhere? And Brees can officially negotiate with other teams at 12 o'clock Eastern time today. Most by this point expected an extension of some sort. I was one of those people that expected an extension with Drew Brees and the Saints. Obviously, that has not gone down, and Brees has a contract that voids on the first day of the new league year. Instead of having a $6 million hit in 2018 for the Saints for his $30 million bonus from a few years ago, the Saints would actually have an $18 million hit. Is there any chance Drew Brees leaves the Saints, guys? Give me a heart for no way, a like for you could see it happening. And if there is a team for Drew Brees to go to outside of New Orleans, perhaps the Vikings. I think the Vikings are the only logical destination here, considering they have a better, if not, I guess, an equal chance to win a Super Bowl in 2018 along with the New Orleans Saints. It wouldn't make any sense for Drew Brees to go to Arizona, go to New York and play for the Jets or anything like that. Makes most sense for me for Drew Brees to go to either Minnesota Vikings if he does leave or just remain with the New Orleans Saints. But as we stand right now, there is no deal, which is really odd, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, the biggest storyline of free agency right here, the latest on Kirk Cousins and the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. So 2 teams are ready to offer 3-year, fully guaranteed deals. The Vikings are reportedly the front runners in this Kirk Cousins hunt, and apparently a decision is likely coming Wednesday or Thursday, which is pretty darn soon. Very soon. So let me know where Kirk Cousins will sign. There are so many options here. You got the Jets with a good amount of cap space. You got the Browns that have made a lot of moves. I would not count them out. You got the Vikings probably in the best position for Kirk Cousins to win a ring. And many other potential scenarios as well. You got the Denver Broncos. John Elway has been active in free agency in years past. So hit me up in the comments section here on the Cam Rogers Show. I'll be sure to answer your comments as well. All right, let's get into the final headline today. Adrian Peterson is indeed expected to get cut. This is not a surprise. The Cardinals will save $3.5 million in cap space. AP averaged 3.5 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns last season. Not very inspiring in his 2017 campaign. AP likely to be a free agent pretty darn soon. David Johnson returning at the running back position there. So no real need to bring back Adrian Peterson for the Arizona Cardinals. There you see the breaking news at your top of your screen. The Dolphins plan on cutting Ndamukong Suh, star defensive tackle for that Miami squad. Would be a big-time amount of cap savings, $17 million designated for that post-June 1st cut, so they can maximize that kind of savings there for the Miami Dolphins. We'll continue to follow this story. I'll keep you updated on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Get the Cam Rogers Show podcast version as well, chatsports.com/Cam Show. I'll be back here 10 o'clock Eastern Time on Wednesday. Take care, everybody.